Well, the NFL season kicks off tomorrow, which means your fantasy football season also kicks off tomorrow night. And wouldn't you know it, the waiver wire is already popping. Here's a look at some of the players you should keep your eye on as you look to build that perfect roster. A lot of guys on that list that we're all familiar with, but a couple that are insiders here are going to help us get to know a little bit better as we welcome in Dave Richards and Dave Richard, no S. I literally practiced that before and I still got it wrong.
All good. Totally
Dave
fine.
Richards, Heath Cummings. Guys, this is such an exciting time, with the NFL kicking off. We were talking about before, you're in 25 leagues. I don't know.
He said north of 25.
So more. You guys have enough so that I can sit this season.
Yeah. We might need to put some leagues on your plate to help us out.
Well, let's start off with the quarterback position, one of the most important positions I feel in fantasy football. A lot of guys who are in the mix who could make some splashes. I'll go to you first, Dave. Who are some guys we should be keeping our eye on?
Well, the name that I really liked was Jordan Love, but we learned on Wednesday that Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs were not in practice, and if those two wide receivers don't play, then I don't like Jordan Love quite as much. That's the reason why I'm into Love, is because those two receivers seem to be playmakers, and I thought Love was impressive over the preseason. He was certainly throwing downfield, good accuracy, just a little bit late on some of his throws. Those could turn into interceptions as the season rolls along, but for now, I think his mobility is an asset, and they're going to need that mobility if he doesn't have those two wide receivers. If they're both out, by the way, and we're not going to talk about him later on, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, two guys that you can pick up off the waiver wire right now to help you out. Love, a good number 2 QB, and a guy you could stash if you wanted to in your 1 QB leagues.
You know who was at practice on Wednesday? Terry McLaurin. Sam Howell might have both Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson in week 1 against an Arizona Cardinals defense that is likely the worst in the NFL. You know who I think wants to show off in week 1? It's Eric Bieniemy. He does not need Andy Reid, and he's going to show that in this game. I'm afraid to start Howell over Anthony Richardson in week 1. He has sneaky rushing upside, over 800 rushing yards, double-digit rushing touchdowns his last year in college, ran for 35 yards in his only start last year. And then a little bit further downrange, I'm really excited to see what Ryan Tannehill looks like, because he's got DeAndre Hopkins. I think they did that because they want to throw the ball more than they did last year. And if you look at what Tannehill did the year that he had Corey Davis and A.J. Brown both healthy for the entire season, he was a borderline top 12 quarterback.
I don't remember the last time I heard really excited and Ryan Tannehill.
I was actually thinking the same thing.
But I think he actually has a good point. And Tannehill certainly was drafted in Superflex and 2 QB leagues. I don't know if he's the best starter this week against New Orleans, but if they throw a little bit more, and they should given the receivers that they have, he could absolutely be a top 15-ish type of fantasy quarterback.
A lot of guys to keep our eye out on in that play caller position. Of course, though, the conversation all preseason has been no Jonathan Taylor out in Indianapolis. So he's going to start the season on the PUP, but that obviously bodes well for the rest of that running back room in there. A couple names on our wall and on that list that maybe we should put on our roster.
We've got to figure out who it's going to be at this point. It's going to be a combination of the guys, but the real question is Zach Moss's arm okay? Because I do believe that when he's 100% healthy, he's going to lead this committee with Deion Jackson, with Evan Hull. We don't know for sure if that's going to be week 1, but really, if I'm picking up a running back, hopefully I've already got 2 starters. I'm picking up somebody that I think could matter for the next month or even longer, and I do believe that Moss is that guy. Another guy on the list, and I'm surprised he's only 5% rostered, as much as fantasy managers love to draft those backup running backs. Rico Dowdle, the backup to Tony Pollard. Pollard's career high, including college, in touches last year, before last year, was 169. He goes way over that number, and he ends the year with a gruesome lower leg injury. I'm not certain that the Cowboys have any reason to believe they could greatly increase his workload and he'll stay healthy. Dowdle could have a bigger role than people are expecting.
Deuce Vaughn is rostered in more leagues than Rico Dowdle at this point. I know that's near and dear to your heart, Cowboys. He is more fun. But even if Pollard were to miss some games, I think you'd see Dowdle and Vaughn kind of split the workload in his stead. So Dowdle's one that I'm carrying in my deeper leagues where I've already taken Tony Pollard. Let's go back to Indianapolis for a second. Zach Moss is the guy. He averaged almost 5 yards per carry last year when he had a chance to play for the Colts. But I really like their rookie running back, Evan Hull. He's short, stout, a good versatile player. He's got good athleticism, got good burst. I wonder if he could end up taking some work away from both Deion Jackson, who's kind of just a guy, and Zach Moss, who's more than just a guy, but he's a little bit injury prone. The other running back I like is someone that I want to stash on my roster all year. It's Kenneth Gainwell for the Philadelphia Eagles. And we know that the Eagles added 2 new running backs this offseason. It's DeAndre Swift and it's Rashad Penny. I think Gainwell has a chance to earn playing time while those guys are healthy. And neither of them have played a full season yet in the NFL, so there's a chance where Gainwell could step in and see significant work. I would especially like Gainwell if it were DeAndre Swift who missed time, because Gainwell can work in the passing game. He compared favorably to Nyheim Hines when he came out of college, and now I wonder if he will get those opportunities in the event of Swift and or Penny going down with an injury.
Good guys to keep in your back pocket. Now, speaking from personal experience here, I'm not playing fantasy this year. I'm taking a break, but in years past.
I don't get that. I don't get that, Haley. Okay, go ahead.
I need a rest. You've got 25 leagues. I can barely keep up with 2.
Can you at least tell everybody where you finished last year? There it is.
First in both of my leagues.
She's walking out a champion, everybody.
Ending my time for now as a champion, but maybe next year, maybe this will inspire me to jump in back next year. Now, a lot of the reason why I was able to win last year and the year prior was because of Cooper Kupp and his production that he's had over the last couple of seasons, but right now, kind of shaky. He's been dealing with that hamstring injury. They're not sure if he's going to show up and show out the way he's done in the past, but kind of sounds like it's a good opportunity for some other guys under the radar to make a difference. The
first name on my list is Van Jefferson, and he's available in 75% of CBS Sports leagues, Haley. And this is somebody who's a good route runner who earned a 23% target per route run rate last year when there was no Cooper Kupp on the field. It wasn't very often, but it happened. And we know that Van Jefferson can get himself open. This is also going to be a Rams team that struggles. Their defense is not good. I mean, they've got Aaron Donald. He's great. But outside of him, he can't play all 11 spots. So you're going to see this Rams team throwing quite a bit this year. If Cooper Kupp isn't there, and we should learn more about Kupp's status on Wednesday, then Jefferson could end up being someone who ends up as a wide receiver 3 or PPR flex. Absolutely love the idea of stashing him. And just as a opening night stash, we know that Travis Kelce, even if he plays, he's not going to be at 100%. Keep an eye on Justin Ross with the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a player who's got good speed, good athleticism, and someone who's been hurt a lot over his career. He's healthy now. Could be a good winner for the perimeter for Kansas City, someone that could take away work from all those other wide receivers in Kansas City, but he's got to stay on the field to do it first. I'm stashing him in my deeper leagues.
I want to hit on one more Rams wide receiver, Puka Nacua, only 5% roster. Definitely somebody to stash if you have one of those practice squad spots in dynasty leagues for rookie only, but he could be somebody in deeper leagues that matter as well. Listen, we've seen Van Jefferson without Cooper Kupp, and it wasn't particularly inspiring. If Puka Nacua can actually reach his upside, he might actually earn targets at a greater rate than Van Jefferson. I agree with Dave right now. I'd rather have Jefferson. I just think Nacua has more upside. And then one guy that's available in a third of leagues that I don't really think should be available in any going into week 1. That's Rachaad Bateman. We saw at the beginning of last year, he scored 40 fantasy points in the first 3 weeks of the season. Then he got hurt. Oh yeah, Lamar Jackson was averaging 40 fantasy points per game in those 3 weeks. Jackson said this offseason that Bateman's still his wide receiver 1. We've drafted Zay Flowers as the number 1 wide receiver. People have been more excited about Odell Beckham, at least those people that remember 5 years ago what Odell Beckham used to be. I think that Rachaad Bateman might lead these wide receivers in targets early in the season. We'll just have to see if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, we remember Odell Beckham Jr. in Dallas. We know what he is capable of. So
right.
Put him on your fantasy team, speaking from experience. Dave, you mentioned earlier Travis Kelce, and still up in the air. We're not sure where he's going to play tomorrow, if he's going to be an impact in week 1. But very similar to the Jonathan Taylor situation, it kind of sounds like there's some other guys there at tight end that could fill that gap.
I mean, the first name that everybody went for off the waiver wire when they heard about Travis Kelce not being healthy was Noah Gray. And Gray figures to get the most playing time among the 2 backup tight ends that the Kansas City Chiefs have. The other one is Blake Bell. Bell's been around the league for a long time. Not somebody who's a great receiver, could always steal a touchdown. But Noah Gray's been used in short yardage situations for the Chiefs as well, and his playing time could erupt for any amount of time that Travis Kelce misses. So he's a tight end that I'm a big fan of stashing. But the other one, available in about half of CBS Sports leagues, is Jahan Dotson on the New Orleans Saints. We have talked a lot about Jahan Dotson last year, kind of a touchdown magnet for New Orleans. This year, he's got Derek Carr under center. Carr's had a pretty good track record of leaning on his tight ends. Darren Waller was a huge part of that, and even Foster Morrow was a part of that. And I know the Saints have a lot of guys at tight end. Morrow's one of them, Jimmy Graham's one of them. Jahan Johnson's going to be on the field a lot, and they asked him this offseason to watch Julian Edelman run routes. That means that Jahan Dotson could be a short area target, maybe a second read guy for Derek Carr, but he'll play a lot. If you didn't get a studly tight end, or let's say you did and his name is Travis Kelce, you might need a second tight end. Jahan Johnson's out there for you.
Two guys I'm looking for at tight end. One specifically for this week, Gerald Everett. Great matchup against the Dolphins, who gave up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends last year. He'll be playing in that Kellen Moore offense that's always had a role for the tight end. So I like his target share this week. I think he's a good start. And then Trey McBride, just 12% rostered. We don't know that Zach Ertz is going to be ready for the start of the season. We don't know that Zach Ertz is ever going to be Zach Ertz again. McBride came into the NFL with great pedigree. Would not be a surprise if he just emerges as a guy who's a must start the rest of the season.
All right, there you have it. Your fantasy notes. Everybody should have been listening. And in case you're not listening, you can listen to their podcast. But Heath and Dave, thanks so much for your time and for your knowledge. And we talked about that podcast, Fantasy Football Today. There's still time to tidy up those rosters before the season kicks off tomorrow. You can catch Fantasy Football Today for free on the Odyssey app, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.